I'm Joe Duffy for Whiners and Whiners, and we're going to talk about how to dominate preseason football. Whatever you do, ignore those nattering nabobs of negativism who will tell you that betting preseason football is for degenerates, it's the ultimate crapshoot. Quite the opposite. People that say that, they ignore the golden rule, well, one of the many golden rules of gambling. Do you know how much odds makers despise uncertainty? So do square players. But we pros, we love it and we exploit it. And it's gotten even better here in the preseason was because of the offshore sports books and because of now all the states, what do we got, like 29 states that are now have legalized gambling. These sports books are getting up the lines even earlier than ever, which creates even more uncertainty for them and uncertainty that we can pounce on. Now, kind of like the regular season, but even more so in preseason, you've got to go against what the public believes. And number one is the public adores preseason teams that have their backup quarterback and their third string quarterback that have a significant amount of starting experience. I don't know how many times I've heard it. They're like, oh my gosh, their number one quarterback, the guy who's going to be starting anyway, he's got 15 games of experience. Their number two quarterback's got 29 games of starting experience. Even their number three quarterback's got, 18 games of experience. The other team, their top three guys have a combined 7 starts, and then they jump on the team that's got a number 3 guy coming in who at one time was a starter. That is absolutely a major mistake. There is a reason why a guy who's had every opportunity to start in the NFL is now battling for second and third quarterbacks. Because he's a turnover machine, he's a bust. I will go with the team that's got the young quarterbacks who are hungry, who are approaching a preseason game with the mentality that it's like a regular season game, even a playoff game for them. Not to mention the coaches, at least they're going to have some familiarity. Not that there's a lot of game preparation, but they've got some familiarity with the tendencies of the guys who are journeyman starters. They don't have any familiarity with these young guys, and because there's very little game prep, they're not really all that concerned and not going to be studying game film. So absolutely, I love the team where the announced rotation, and the coaches almost always announce what the rotation is going to be. This guy's going to start, this guy's coming in number 2, number 3, and in some cases number 4. The team that has significantly less starts under their belt of the guys that are going to be in the rotation are the ones that I like. And the same thing, the public will overreact because one team says they're going to play their starters just a little bit longer. Now, it's kind of a new game in football where they reduced it to 3 games. Now, some coaches kind of still use the third game as a dress rehearsal. Some of them now consider it the second game. The exception is, of course, if there is a huge, where one guy says, I'm not going to play any of my starters, and then the other coach says, I'm probably going to play my starters an entire half. That's one thing. But when there's only a slight variance, the public overreacts. The line is going to move like crazy. Now, if you're truly a sharp, you can be, as I like to call it, a bet middler. When you catch it at the beginning, you might be able to get the favorite at -3 and the underdog at +7. That's a little bit of an extreme, but sometimes you can get those extremes. That's one thing. But I, for the most part, in a situation like that, the better of the two bets is waiting for the line to move, waiting for the public to overreact, and then betting on the other side. Now, I wouldn't say to blindly bet line moves, but I will say in the preseason, betting against line moves are much more effective because of that, because there is some overreaction, and it's also about pure, simple numbers because the totals are so much lower in the preseason. A point is more valuable. For example, in the preseason, a lot of times you're going to see totals that are in the mid to even like lower 30s. So when you have a 2-point line move on a total that's 34, that is 5.8% market shift. Meanwhile, compare that to a regular season game where you could have a 2-point move on, say, a 58 total. That's only 3.45% market shift. So yes, a line move in preseason football is actually much more significant during the regular season for the most part because the totals are so much lower in the preseason. And at Joe Duffy's Picks, going back to the score phone days, long before there was a picks and parlays, long before there was an internet, I was dominating using these basic theories on the score phones and it still really applies today. A lot of things haven't changed. I've also heard people say they like to go with new coaches because new coaches find an urge, they have more of an urgency to win. For the most part, that is also false. It's the new coaches who are trying to learn their team a lot more. They're much more concerned with learning their team. If a guy's been there for 5-6 years, he kind of knows his players a lot better. Now, of course, there can be an exception. There's an exception to everything I say. Every now and then you'll see a coach who takes over a terrible team, and he'll flat out say, we need to establish a winning tradition in the regular season. Now, once they actually say that, and I've heard it a few times, that's a completely different story. And it's usually with new coaches, but maybe even sometimes it could be with a coach who's, in his third year, but they're coming off a terrible year, and he says he wants to establish winning. So that would be an exception. But for the most part, this belief that new coaches, they want to get their first win under their belt, I fell for that trap when I got started in this industry in the 1980s. And then I found out it actually wasn't true. And the more I thought about it, it really kind of made sense because it's these new coaches who are really trying to learn their team. Again, there are a lot more middle opportunities. Of course, that's why I said don't blindly bet against line moves. You got to ask why the line is moving, and especially now that we switch from the 4 to the 3 games, definitely the coaches approach a little bit differently. Of course, if the line is moving because one coach says he's going to play his starters significantly more and his key players significantly more, then all of a sudden, you don't want to just magically and automatically, as a knee-jerk, fade that line moves. But contrarian strategy still, the old strategy generally wins. And yes, even in the first year with just the 3 preseason games, some of the basics like small underdogs still do well in NFL preseason. Again, it's because of the uncertainty, but yet the public sees that this team's the better team. This team's going to probably play their starters a little bit more. They still feel more comfortable betting the favorite. That's why the value is with the underdog. So again, contrarian intel is still pretty good. We still study those betting splits. And I would say there's a slightly better advantage in the preseason when it comes to studying betting splits. The problem is it's a smaller sample size, so that during the regular season, when you get really, really big contrarian splits, that can become valuable. But I would say we sway contrarian intel, the betting splits, a little bit more in the preseason than we do in the regular season. So again, don't try to outsmart the room and say, look, preseason football, it's a crapshoot. Do not chase. Do not chase. I know everybody gets excited when they're like, again, this team's going to play their starters a little bit longer, and they ignore that a line has moved. One of the dumbest things I've ever heard people say, I've heard people say something along the lines, if you like this team at a pick, you certainly should love it at -2. If they're not going to cover -2, I don't want your pick. Oh, my goodness. That is beyond absurd. It's all about beating the line. So do not chase steam, especially if the reason a line moves is because of all those square reasons that I stated. During the regular season, we like to bet a little bit early and beat the line moves. Kind of in the preseason, like to wait a little bit and fade some of the dumb line moves. So again, you absolutely can and will win. Will win in preseason football. At Winners and Whiners, just jump on a Joe Duffy full season package. I've been doing this since 1988, ladies and germs. Full-time handicapper since 1988. Been in the industry since 1986. Picked up a few things along the way. That's why I got the nickname of the NFL specialist way back in the early 90s on the score phones. And we're still winning today in the regular season. We're still winning in the preseason.